sound like it's coming from upstairs.
Yeah. There it is again. There it is again. What the hell is that? Did you hear that?
Okay.
Oh my God.
In comparison to Europe and the United States, Canada doesn't have many locations where you can visit a large-scale historic battlefield. One prominent exception is Louisbourg, Nova Scotia, a fortress built by France in 1713 to protect its empire in the New World. It was the site of two major sieges by the British, the first in 1745 and the second in 1758, which marked the final defeat for the French in the maritime colonies. At the end of 6 weeks of battle and a tremendous loss of life, the fortress and town were reduced to rubble. In 1961, the Canadian government began a massive reconstruction effort using the original architectural plans of the town and fort. Many of the Parks Canada employees who've worked in Louisbourg in the years since maintain that the original residents of the town and fort continue to haunt the site, which made it a perfect place for Holly and I to investigate in the fall of 2008. We began with a tour of the site given to us by Troy Allen, a longtime employee of the park. So the town, if the soldiers are up here, separated by class, rich ghosts over here, not so rich ghosts over here.
That's right.
This is the town down here.
Yeah, and this is everybody else. So you still have some military population down here. All the officers would have their own homes because they're very wealthy and stuff. But other than that, this is your town. I mean, just like any modern town, you got your shops and your warehouses, businesses, small independent businesses, big merchants' businesses. I mean,
and some of these homes are haunted, allegedly.
Well, there's lots of stories about all kinds of homes all over through the town, yeah.
So that was where the governor hung out.
That's right, yeah.
The big building, there was a chapel there as well. More the administrative section.
That's right, yeah, the seat of the government for the colony.
And this area of town we're in was the town. And this, there's a story about this building and this building over here. I guess it was Mark that we were talking to.
Yeah. So as Mark's clearing through the building, he's looking out these windows at the top at the dormers across the street to the one dormer in the Rodrigue property over here.
And that's where he saw the face.
Yep.
Part of the procedure to close the building I was in was to go upstairs, to go through into the next building and chase everyone out basically and come back the same way and make sure that no one had been left behind in the building so it was clean to close it. As I was going through the first time, I looked across the street as I was closing a window and there was a face staring at me from across, and I tried to signal, but there was no response. I proceeded to the next window, and when I looked out that window, the same face was still across the street, staring directly back at the same spot I had just been previously in the preceding window. At the time, I just kind of chalked it up to coincidence more than anything else. And then several years later, as I was on the internet just doing some freelance research, I stumbled across the exact same face that I had seen in that window. And that was really the first time it came back to me and it hit me that perhaps there was some kind of a connection there with something bigger.
Mark's eyewitness account was very interesting, particularly given the fact that he discovered the same face several years later while doing historical research. But it was just the first of several weird accounts we heard about Louisbourg. One area that really captured my interest was a concealed tunnel underneath the fortress walls, where Troy reported that a visitor to the fort had been pushed by an unseen force while on a tour.
Nice place.
Yeah. So this was a tunnel that the French used to sneak out and attack the British, right?
Yeah, that apparently on the moors just outside the fortress gates.
And it's a tunnel that has plenty of green ectoplasmic slime. Or...
Yeah, I think that's algae.
Imagine what kind of life it would have been, sort of crawling through things like this every day. Ugh. Holly and I continued to investigate the tunnel. We positioned our audio-digital recorders on the ground to see if we could pick up any anomalous sounds. After about half an hour, we took the audio recorders with us and moved to the other end of the tunnel to see if anything would happen there.
So what do you think with Louisbourg? Do you think that it's actually haunted with the spirit or the soul of people who have died tragically here? Do you think maybe the landscape's just been imprinted?
Well, they've had the history of Louisbourg, at least for the 50 years or whatever that it was active in the first half of the 18th century. Smallpox, 2 major battles between the British and French, other diseases, people who had just died naturally. I mean, it was a brutal, hard place to be. So there's certainly enough dead people here, and many of whom I'm sure probably died in not the greatest of circumstances. So yeah, you know, if you believe in ghosts or hauntings of any sort, this is the kind of place where it would seem natural for them to be, especially you know, the idea maybe of residual energy, which I know some people who investigate battlefield ghosts, for instance, talk about residual hauntings or residual energy, that kind of stuff.
So, I mean, if I was a spirit, which maybe I am, depending on what theory you look at, I wonder what I would want to say. I mean, if you were able to actually, for like, not the first time, I mean, we're not the only people who have wandered through here with ADRs, but I wonder what you would want to say. What would you say?
I'd say boo. I don't know what I'd say.
Who came up with boo?
I have no idea.
What ghost did that? They've ruined it for everyone.
You'd be dead. Like, what would you have to say?
Johnny killed me.
It was really Johnny, not Frank. Don't execute Frank. After another half an hour in the tunnel where nothing happened, Holly and I headed back to the town in different directions to one of the houses that was supposedly haunted. I made a point of taking the shortest route so I could get there first, because along with the serious stuff, you always have to make sure to have some fun while engaged in a ghost investigation.
Hey!
No!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I scare you there? Is that a little spooky?
Oh, no. That wasn't scary at all, coming out of a darkened, what was that, garden?
It's actually a garden for somebody's house, I think, or something like that. Here in foggy, misty, spooky,
Drizzly,
dark, drizzly
haunted.
Lewisburg. One of the houses that's supposedly haunted is this one, yes?
Yes.
Nespa?
They're all haunted, but this one in particular, a lot of the staff won't even go into.
They won't go in there.
They won't go in there.
What's
Apparently people have seen figures on the stairwells. Not necessarily bad. One woman was actually stopped from falling.
Ooh, okay.
Someone grabbed her from behind.
Well, that's odd.
Yeah.
Like, it stopped her from falling.
Yeah, stopped her from
As opposed
falling.
to pushing her, which is what you usually hear.
Yeah, no, nothing like that.
Okay. So, but they won't go in there.
Some of them won't.
Well, you know what that means.
You're gonna go in there.
Yeah, only if you go in there first.
All right.
You first.
Are you gonna jump out and scare me again?
Ooh, I'm not, well, maybe, later.
Yeah.
Holly and I went inside and set up our 4 infrared cameras in the Douaget home. We positioned 2 of the cameras on the 2nd floor, where people had reported hearing strange noises. The 3rd camera was set up at the top of the stairway which led to the 3rd floor, where the ghostly figure of a man from the 18th century had been reportedly seen. We placed the final camera on the ground floor, where we settled in for our investigation. For the remainder of the night, Holly and I concentrated our efforts on the Douaget house. Nothing strange or paranormal happened to us in Louisbourg on that first trip, but that's not unusual for a ghost investigation. However, the number of stories of paranormal activity told to us by staff members, as well as the fact that much of the fort was closed when we were there for the season, convinced Holly and I that a second trip was warranted. As it turns out, that second trip was well worth the effort. When Ghost Cases returns, Holly and I revisit the ghosts of Louisbourg, this time with psychic Kelly Muse.
Is it following you?
It's coming down. Do you feel that?
Are you serious?
Fortress Louisbourg haunted by the ghosts of its 18th century inhabitants? Holly and I return for a second investigation. Holly and I made our return to Louisbourg in the summer of 2009, this time with our friend psychic Kelly Muse, who had joined us on previous investigations. Besides being a psychic, however, Kelly was also French-Canadian, and I thought that her heritage might help trigger some sort of reaction if there really were any ghosts at Louisbourg.
I can't believe this place. It's beautiful. The energy just amazing.
Well, we're headed to the chapel.
After showing Kelly around the town and fort, we headed to the King's Bastion Chapel, which had been destroyed by fire in the early 1970s. Kyle Allen's father was one of the workers engaged in rebuilding the chapel. He had since passed away, but before he died, he recounted an eerie tale to Kyle about a very strange paranormal experience he had while working in the attic of the chapel.
My father was working in furnishings at the time, and he was to go into the attic part of the chapel and clean out the rooms which were smoke damaged and damaged by soot. Now, while he was doing this, with the corner of the eye, he caught something moving in the background. He was up there by himself. He turned around and there was a large ball of beeswax, probably about 10-15 pounds worth of beeswax floating through the air. He thought he was just seeing stuff, so he goes downstairs to get some fresh air. He thought the fumes might have been getting to him. While he was down there, one of the managers came along, saw that he was a little bit shaken up, and asked him what happened. They then went upstairs to check, see what exactly happened. They went into the room where the beeswax was previously. They could see where it was sitting on the table because the soot was all around it except for the spot right underneath the beeswax. Then they went into the other room, looked at the beeswax, lifted it up with a stick, not to put any fingerprints on it. Underneath the beeswax there was soot, so it wasn't there previously. Then once they were finished looking at it, they saw where the stick touched the beeswax, the soot was rubbed off, but that was the only mark on it.
The attic was a tight spot, so I decided to wait outside while Holly and Kelly investigated.
Okay, Kelly, so this is where Kyle and Troy's father had his experience after the fire that I was telling you about.
Yes, the beeswax.
We have graciously been allowed access up here. Troy's father had his experience in this area here with the wax after the fire in the chapel. Getting some
Major negative energy coming from above. It's very heavy, very suppressing.
dense.
Very dense, very dense. Oh, so what happened there?
There?
Yeah, it's coming from there.
Oh, you can actually see some of the charred area. After the fire, he was up cleaning here, I think.
That you can feel something's not right here.
Negative.
Yes. Let me try. Do you think I should try?
Oh yeah, sure. When you say negative, is it? Do you get that from the tight of?
When negative energy is around, what ends up happening is it's almost like a vacuum. It takes the energy. I feel like almost like oxygen is being taken from me, and it comes from top, not from bottom. So my legs now, I feel like they're very, very cold, but the top here feels very hot. And if you can look, I'm actually sweating.
My head's warm. My hands are cold though.
Because I'm shivering, my legs are shivering.
And you feel that this is coming from over here?
Yes, definitely. That's not a very good place to go up. Let's see what we get up here. Now, you see that? And as I'm getting higher, it's getting more. I would not go up there.
You want to go up there?
No.
Is it following you?
It's coming down there. Do you feel that?
Are you serious?
You feel that energy coming? It's very, very much up there. So I would not put my head in there.
So when you went up there, you felt like it came down
Oh,
towards
yes.
you?
Did you see how it turned quickly?
Yes.
Well, let's try it again.
Let's test this.
Now, I'm not turning it here. Let's see. Now, you saw before, and I'm getting goosebumps again. Ooh. See, look. There it stops. And it's actually, you can feel it colder there.
Do you feel like it's pushing you away?
Yes. I don't feel comfortable there at all.
So you wouldn't go up there?
No. There's something there. And I don't think it's positive energy, but I would not go up there.
All right. Well, just for fun, I'm gonna try staying in this space. I know Paul does it all the time. I'm gonna give it a go.
Oh, I think you can do it, but please,
Oh yeah.
if you go up there, don't stick your head in there.
Why?
I just don't get a really good feeling because I can't promise you there's nothing on that other side. So the energy gets pushed out. What is it going to do if you try to push in? So be aware that there's something up there, and I'd rather you not.
Not go in. I don't think you
No.
can go in there. I might look. I won't go in.
Okay, with a flashlight, just
Yeah.
looking, I can see, but don't put your body in there at all.
Okay.
I would not feel comfortable,
promise.
please.
I promise.
Okay,
I
good.
promise.
Okay.
When Holly told me that she was going to spend some time alone in the attic, I was both relieved that for once I didn't have to do it, and also intrigued to see if she would have some of the same strange experiences I had had on other investigations. As it turned out, Holly was about to begin her weirdest evening of ghost investigating yet.
Okay, so we're on take 2 of Holly spends the alone time in the creepy attic in Louisbourg. Footsteps of the crew leaving. Essentially, what happened was the camera died without explanation. It's quite lovely. So you know, they've touched it up, put on a new battery. Should have been full, but apparently drained ridiculously fast since they set it up. Obviously, you saw how long it was set up. And now I'm here again, alone. Yep. You probably noticed the hole. Whew. See, I wouldn't say scared is what I'm feeling right now. Apprehensive. Yeah. Like I'm waiting for something to happen. So far, we've already had one of these box things collapse with no one touching it. It just fell over. These are full of nails. They're pretty heavy. And, oh yeah, Kelly's dowsing rods going crazy, and the camera battery dying. It's great space. Cozy.
When Ghost Cases returns, Holly and Kelly continue their investigation of the most haunted locations in Fortress Louisbourg. Holly and Kelly Muse continue their investigation of the Fortress Louisbourg.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. That's a fantastic feeling right there. That couldn't have been timed better. When you spend time alone in a supposedly haunted space, your imagination can get the better of you. Every little sound, every shadow on the wall, it all contributes to a growing sense of unease, which turns to discomfort and then finally fear. All right, let's just try relaxing. Now I'm scared. I had had enough. I don't know whether it was haunted, but it was definitely an uncomfortable and scary place. I rejoined Paul and Kelly downstairs, and we headed over to the Douaget house, which thankfully was as far away from the chapel as I could get.
When we got to the Douaget house, we set up our infrared cameras in the same locations we had used in our previous investigation. I then camped out in the street opposite the Rodrigue house to see if the ghostly face of the 18th century gentleman that had been reported in the window would appear to me. In the meantime, Holly and Kelly began an investigation of the Douaget house, at which point things got really interesting.
Isn't this the stairwell that that lady supposedly almost fell back, or was in the process of falling back?
Yes, that's the same one.
And that she felt herself being caught?
Yep.
What the hell is that? Did you hear that?
Okay. Oh my God. That's incredibly strange. I mean, I know old buildings make noises. I've lived in one my entire life, but that's
not a typical old noise.
Does it sound like it's coming from upstairs?
Yeah. There it is again. Do you see anything?
No.
It sounds like, oh, I wonder what's up here.
Well, there's the attic above us.
It sounds just like footprints.
Steps.
Steps.
It's all good.
It is.
It's all good.
I got shivers. Somebody's walking upstairs.
Well, it's what it sounds like, and we're getting reports of people having that kind of noise anomaly, if you want to call it, because there's no one upstairs, and most of the time they keep that door locked. It's unlocked right now because we're monitoring with the DVR.
Yes.
So.
And there's no one there.
All right, so let's go have some more fun, and
Want to go upstairs?
that seems like the next logical thing to do.
Let's go see. Okay.
Kelly and I conducted a thorough search upstairs, and then we went outside and checked around the building. Wind-related noises were present, but we could account for them. Our digital video cameras confirmed that there was no one upstairs, and we couldn't find anything else that could explain the sounds that we encountered in the Douaget house. There is no question that the second trip to Louisbourg was one of the strangest ghost investigations I've ever been on. Things definitely happened that I still cannot explain, and which continue to haunt me, no pun intended, months later.
While Holly and Kelly were investigating the Douaget house, I was freezing in the wind and intermittent rain across from the Rodrigue property. I didn't see the 18th century gentleman that had been reported in the window there, but that's how it goes with ghost investigations sometimes. Besides, I didn't really care once I heard what had been happening to Holly and Kelly. Their experiences, for which we could not find a rational explanation, seemed to confirm the stories of paranormal activity that had been told to us about Louisbourg. This has forced me to consider the very real possibility that some of the original French inhabitants of the fortress have taken residence in the reconstructed National Historic Site almost 2 centuries later, perhaps as a chilling, otherworldly reminder of lives lived and lost in a violent, brutal period in Canadian history.